product universe here, Stephen Miller lays out how important Make America Healthy Again, MAHA, is for our country.
The RFK Jr. report had 7 citations citing academics that turned out to be fake. Did that live up to the standards of the U.S. government? And are there new procedures in place or any accountability for that?
No, I don't believe that's true, but even regardless, the reality is that what has been fake for generations now is the medical and nutrition advice that so much of this government has been giving our families. And, we saw, of course, during COVID with like fake rules about from the so-called experts about masking and social distancing and everything else, or pretending that there's the same risk profile for a healthy 4-year-old kid as an elderly and obese person. The MAHA report is the most significant and important breakthrough moment in terms of prioritizing prevention, underlying health, answering and asking the right questions. Why are there such persistently high rates of pediatric cancer in this country? And why have they increased so significantly since 1970? Why are pediatric cancer rates so much higher in the developed world than the developing world? Why do you even have a concept called diseases of civilization? I think you've all heard that concept before, right? Where in the most developed countries, you have such high incidences of cancer, of immunological disorders, right? In other words, things like celiac disease, food allergies, eczema, psoriasis, gut disorders. You have so many quality of life disorders that can actually be crippling and debilitating, right? In other words, some of these disorders can completely degrading the person's entire quality of life permanently with no known cures. They can treat these things with, like Crohn's disease, for example. They can treat these things with steroids. They can try to mitigate the symptoms, but there's no path out for millions of Americans. What is causing young babies in this country to have these crippling allergic reactions or immune systems that don't fire properly? They underreact to certain illnesses. They overreact to other illnesses. And we don't see these same things in the natural world and other primates. And so the report, which took just such extraordinary courage, and I'm so grateful to Bobby, in talking about the chemical load in our society, the chemical load that a child accrues from the day they're born, in terms of everything they touch and interact with in the world, the complete denuding of our food supply. In other words, the eradication of all living things, all natural things from our food supply in the form of these ultra-processed foods, so that children are living a life where they're not having access to anything natural, they're not having access to anything that's healthy. Everything they do have is loaded up with insane amounts of sugar. For years, I still think it's the case. If you went to like a store and you looked at baby food, it's filled with sugar. Why are people putting sugar into baby food? And how many children's snacks, right, are filled with dyes, artificial ingredients, and massive amounts of sugar? What is this doing to a young body from the day they're born? Combined again with all the chemical exposures, the incredibly accelerated growth and compression of the overall vaccine schedule from even when I was a kid. Parents have questions. They want to know, again, why do their kids have these chronic health conditions? Why do they go to the hospital when they're sick? Instead of just, in other words, they have like a common cold. Why is it sending them to the hospital? Why is their immune system firing wrong? Why is it that that foods that people have eaten for thousands of years are suddenly causing these crippling allergies in children? Why is it these high and persistent rates of obesity that is no precedent in history amongst our young people? What are the effects and the cost to our healthcare system over time when you have these high rates of chronic illnesses, heart disease, obesity, lung disease, asthma? Like, what are the effects of these on a society, both financially, personally, quality of life? Why is it that a person from the developing world has a lower cancer rate than an American does? I mean, on average, right? But within a single generation, their family has the exact same cancer rate, likelihood of getting cancer, as the American population. These are questions that no one has wanted to ask or explore or assess, and thank God that Bobby is doing so. I have time for one last question.
Stephen Miller explained how important MAHA is for our country in great detail. For generations, Americans have been given fake medical and nutrition advice. Fake medical and nutrition advice that has not made Americans healthier, but has made Americans sicker. The advice that has been given to Americans on nutrition and medicine in the last couple decades has not led to a healthier America, plain and simple. We are sicker now than we ever have been before. More people now have disorders, diseases, and disabilities with no known cures now than ever before. America used to be a healthy nation where most people were healthy. Now almost everyone is sick or obese. Our ultra-processed food is poisoning us with additive food dyes that include toxic chemicals, which are negatively affecting us over time. That is why it is so important to investigate why Americans are sicker than people in the developing world. That is why RFK Jr.'s mission to make America healthy again is so vitally important. It is so important because our posterity will inherit the negatives of our health down the line. And we need to find out what does and doesn't make people healthy, because the advice of the last couple decades is clearly not the answer. We need to make America healthy again to save our future generations from chronic illness and obesity. But that's just my 2 cents, and you're entitled to your 2 cents. If you want, share your opinion in the comments below, as all viewpoints are welcome. If you enjoyed this informational and educational video, then give the video a like and turn on my channel notifications so that you'll be notified the next time I release a new video. Thanks for watching. God bless you, and God bless America. Click on the videos on the screen to continue watching my content.